Welcome back, everybody, to the Joey Osborne Show. I'm your host, Joey Osborne, for today's video here. And of course, we are finally to the NHL playoffs here for the Stanley Cup. And a lot of great matchups this year, a lot of things to break down here, as I'm going to be giving my predictions on how this year's Stanley Cup playoffs will play out here. So obviously, let's start here off with the West here first, our first matchup. The number one seed for the Central Division and number one seed overall in the West, the Dallas Stars, will be taking on the defending champion Vegas Golden Knights. And I think this is a very interesting series, of course. Vegas, a lot of the guys can be coming back here. Tomas Hertl, who he just recently traded for, he's come back from injury. I think Mark Stone has been discussed as potentially being back for the series. So Vegas is definitely going to be a lot closer to full strength than they have been here in the past. But of course, obviously, when you look at Dallas, a lot of things to look at as well. Obviously, Jason Robertson, the big scorer there, I guess 80 points here this year. You know, great talent. You got Jake Oettinger on goal. And a lot of great talent on the Dallas Stars side here to this point. Obviously, if you look at the season points here, of course, you can see Dallas has 113, while Vegas had 98. Obviously, Dallas, they were known as a very high-scoring team this year, and the 3.59 goals per game really shows that. And then, same thing here, too, when you look at the 2.81 goals per game. Again, shows you how great Oettinger really has been this year for this team. But when you really look at how good this team has been here for Dallas, you gotta talk about the power play here, obviously. You know, they're getting it 24.17% of the time. That's a pretty good conversion rate. And it shows they can be a definite threat on the power play here. And once again, obviously, penalty kill. Both teams pretty solid, but obviously Dallas does have the edge in that here. So I think for this matchup here, I am going to be going with the Dallas Stars here to this point. Oh, let's see. That's why I did that. There we go. Then the Dallas Stars here. I think this is going to be... I think they'll win probably in 6 games, but I think Vegas... Obviously, they're the defending champs. They're getting a lot more healthier. I think they're going to put up a good fight, but I think Dallas is going to win this one in 6 games here. Moving on here to the Winnipeg Jets versus the Colorado Avalanche. And boys, this has been an interesting year for both of these teams, of course. You know, the Avalanche, obviously, they were expected to be here. You know, I think a lot of us thought they were going to be winning that division. But that division was a lot more competitive than we did think. But honestly, here, when you talk about the Winnipeg Jets, they have had a definitely great year. I think, obviously, as surprising as it's been how good they've been, they really have had a very good season, and they just find ways to win. That's the thing about Winnipeg. They have found ways to win in all sorts of different facets this year. They really have. And it, it clearly does show here when you look against, if you look at these teams here. Obviously, you look statistically here, the Avalanche are the better of the two teams here to this point. And honestly, in this series here, I know Winnipeg's the 2 seed, but I just feel the Avalanche, they're spectacular come playoff time. And I think the main thing that we'll see here that'll be the issue for the Jets is right here in the power play percentage at 18.75. That's a very low power play percentage, especially for a playoff team. And when you're playing against probably one of the best power plays in the game in Colorado, who's converting at a 24.46%, it's going to be definitely very tough to, obviously take care of it. Looking at the penalty kill, however, both teams pretty evenly matched up in that point. But if Winnipeg, gives Colorado the opportunities to be able to convert on that power play, I think they'll definitely have a lot of trouble. And I just think, looking at Colorado from McKinnon, McCaw, and all those guys against the Winnipeg Jets, too, they are a good team. But I just don't think they have the talent that it takes to be able to beat Colorado here. And I'm going to say in 6 games, Colorado will take that victory there and move on to the second round. Moving on here now to the Pacific side of things here. We got the Vancouver Canucks, who won the Pacific Division this year, going up against the Nashville Predators, who were the wild card 1. So they are from the Central Division here. And boy, has this been a great year for Vancouver. Obviously, one of the best they've had in a very long time. And things have really started to heat up. Of course, JT Miller, one of the big names here, having a spectacular year. Obviously, a clear year. Elias Pettersson, another guy, has been spectacular so far. He's cooled off a little bit in the second half, but he's had a spectacular season so far. I expect it to continue. Brock Besser, another guy, spectacular year. And just overall, Vancouver has finally rebounded to the team that I think a lot of people thought they would be a couple years ago in this spot. Moving on here to Nashville, though, they have been the surprise of the year. I think a lot of people thought this team was probably not going to make the playoffs. They're here. They won 47 games. They had a pretty impressive year. Obviously, Phillips Forsberg was leading that charge there this year for them as well. But obviously, when you talk about them as well, you got to talk about Ryan O'Reilly. Another great year from him. Definite bounce back from last year. But honestly, when I look at this series here, I think this is a good series. I think they're pretty evenly matched here, but I think I'm going to give my edge here to Vancouver in this spot. But I think this is a series that can easily go to 7 games here, in my mind. But I think Vancouver is just too good right now over Nashville. Moving on here to our last one in the Western Conference here, we have the Edmonton Oilers, Connor McDavid's team here, going up against the Los Angeles Kings. And obviously, these are two very good teams here. Edmonton had a very rocky start. Now, definitely, I made a video about saying we're even going to see McDavid still be an Edmonton Oiler in the near future. And obviously, that's still a question we don't know the answer to and stuff like that. But obviously, of course, had a rocky start, fired the head coach, and boy, did they bounce back. And they're now, of course, 49, 26, and 6. And they were second place in their division here. Of course, going up against the Kings here. Pierre-Luc Dubois, obviously, was kind of not the best this year. I think he was a guy the Kings expected a lot more out of. However, they had some great players who, came in and they just did their job, and they got the Kings here to the 3 spot and to the playoffs here. Obviously, when you talk about the Kings, you got to talk about Doughty, Kopitar, all those guys are still playing at a good level here, and they've been core contributors. But Fiala, obviously, the big guy here, leading their team with 72 points in that spot. But obviously, looking at this series here, the Kings, they're a solid team, and I think they could put up a fight. But I just think out of these two teams, Edmonton is a lot more talented. They have better players. Obviously, you got McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, all those guys. And I just think looking at this series, you can't help but thinking that this is a overmatched series. Obviously, even look at the stats we have displayed up here right now. Of course, the power play numbers, the penalty kill numbers, the goals per goal against. Like, the only thing for Edmonton that I really think is their issue is the goaltending. I think the goaltending is the one thing that I think could help save the Kings in this series. I think the Kings have the better goaltending, but honestly, other than that, there's not really much in the way of advantages here for the Kings in this spot, and I think Edmonton's going to be winning this here in 5 games. Oh, I guess I have to do this here. What was it? 6. Alright, there we go. It's really didn't have you deal whenever you're making the actual decisions, but there we go. Alright. Moving on here now to the Eastern Conference here for the first round. Obviously looking at the Atlantic Division here. We got the Florida Panthers going up here against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and boy, is this going to be an interesting matchup to look at here. Obviously we have the MVP this year, Nikita Kucherov on Tampa Bay's side. He has been spectacular, both in the assist totals and, of course, the goals as well. And just obviously, this is the same Tampa. Even though the record isn't as good as it's been in the past, this is still a very good Tampa Bay team. It's not much has changed. They're still a definite threat, I think, to win this cup. And I think for the Florida Panthers, this probably wasn't the matchup you wanted, but it's the one they got, and it's going to be a tough one for them to really be able to get their heads around here. Obviously, of course, Sam Reinhart's great deal. You have Matthew Tkachuk on the Florida Panthers side, Barkov. I think Ekblad is finally healthy again. He'll have to double check that, but, because he's always in and out. But definitely, a lot of things here. The one thing, though, that obviously is interesting here this year for Tampa Bay is the goaltending has not been as good this year. It's been very odd to see Vasilevsky just not as good as he has been. That's something that's been a little bit of a surprise, and obviously, look at the goals against per game at 3.26. It's pretty high for Tampa Bay historically. And obviously, of course, Florida Panthers on the other side, they've had some great goaltending, but they have been flip-flopping a good bit here. They've had Knight up, they've had Bobrovsky still, obviously, going out of there. There's a lot of things. But when you look at the power play here, I think penalty kill is pretty evenly matched, but the power play here, Tampa Bay is still spectacular. They're both spectacular on the power play, but Tampa Bay is just obviously one of the best in the game. They've always have been. And this year has been no different here at 28.63. And honestly, here, I think this is our fourth upset here this year. I'm going to Tampa Bay over Florida. I think it'll be 7 games, but I just think Tampa Bay, they're still Stanley Cup contenders. You can't say they're not. They still are. They're still a definite threat. Even though they're at the wild card one, they are a lot better than what that record says. And I know Florida's been very good this year, but if you look past history, this matchup, normally Florida does not do well against Tampa Bay. And I just think Tampa Bay is going to pull up the upset here to this spot here. Moving on up here to our next matchup here, we have the 2-seed Boston Bruins going up against the 3-seed Indiana Division Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, Austin Matthews didn't hit the 70 goals, got stuck right at 69 now, so that was a big bummer for him. But obviously, still a great, spectacular season, 107 points from him. And obviously, Nylander and all the rest of those guys, have done spectacular with Tavares. Great year from everyone there. I think definitely they've seen what they want to see from that team. But when you're looking at the Boston Bruins side of things, obviously, once again, another spectacular year. Guys are flying all cylinders. David Pastrnak, obviously, has been spectacular. Goaltending's been good again this year. Not as good as last year, but still very good. Defensively, they have been very strong this year when it comes to Boston. And I think this is going to be a fun matchup here. But it's also probably the most obvious one possible, because we all know how Toronto does in the first round of the playoffs here. They're very evenly matched, except when it comes to the penalty kill. Obviously, that's where Boston has a good advantage. And honestly, I think this is a 7-game series, but I think Boston's going to be coming away here with a victory over Toronto in that spot here. Moving on here to our first matchup here in the Metropolitan Division here, we have the President's Trophy winner New York Rangers here, who I despise, going up against the other team I very much despise in the Washington Capitals here. This is a very interesting series. Washington just snuck in thanks to the Flyers pulling the goaltender there at the end. But honestly, toward the end of the season, they really were firing all cylinders, and now Ovechkin finally got back into it at the end of the season now. And he has been a big benefit to that team, and they have been definitely a threat to other teams here up until this point. Come playoff time. However, I just think with the New York Rangers, Panarin's been playing at an insane level. It's a Bannerjad, spectacular once again. Adam Fox is really emerged as a spectacular defenseman. You got Shesterkin in goal as well. He's shutting down pretty much a lot of things. Hasn't been as good as, he has been, maybe not as good as last year, but he's still been insanely good to this point. And I have a tough time believing the Capitals can win this series. I think the Rangers are going to sweep here in 4. I don't think the Capitals even win a game in this one. I think this is easy picking for the Rangers here. And they get an easy pass here to the second round. And moving on here to the final matchup here, we have the Carolina Hurricanes going up against the New York Islanders. Obviously, on the Islanders side, been very up and down, but they did sneak into the 3 spot at the end there. Matt Barzal, obviously, their leading scorer. Like usual, he has been spectacular this year. For them, been a core contributor in that spot here. So the Islanders, obviously, still have Sorokin, who's been very good as a goaltender for them in this point here. Maybe a little bit more of a down year, but I think still overall he's been a great goaltender. And going up here, obviously, against the Carolina Hurricanes, they went all in this year. They traded for Jake Gensel, obviously, a big name, and he has been spectacular for them in this spot here, obviously proving that he is good still, even without Crosby, as much as it sucks to see him in Carolina instead of Pittsburgh for me. He has been spectacular in Carolina. Adding Sebastian Aho, another guy who has been spectacular this year. And I think if there's any year now for Carolina to win, I really thought last year was their last shot. But I think now this year, after getting Gensel, I think this one probably is really the last shot. And you know what? I think the Hurricanes are going to make it happen here. I have them winning here in 5 games here. So moving on here, obviously Tampa Bay, so that's 7 on that. This one's also 7, 4. And I think this is going to be a 5-game series here for Carolina. Alright, so now moving on here to the second round here, we have, on the Western Conference side, we have the Dallas Stars here against the Colorado Avalanche, and what is going to probably be a battle of titans here to this point, obviously. You got McKinnon going up against Robinson. Both great teams that pretty much evenly matched. You're looking at goals per game. Colorado's a little higher than Dallas, but obviously not by much. goals against per game, obviously, you see Dallas has a clear advantage there with on-draw to this point here. Power play is pretty much near exact here, obviously. You see Colorado maybe slightly a little bit better here to that point, and penalty kill, obviously, Dallas has an advantage there in that spot here. I think this is a great series. If it happens, I think this will go 7 games. But I just think the Colorado Avalanche are going to probably be the better team here. And I think they're going to come away there with the win over the Dallas Stars here. I think Dallas is going to put up a big fight. But I just don't think they can take down the Avalanche at that spot to this point here. Moving on to our next matchup here, we have the Vancouver Canucks against the Edmonton Oilers, obviously. Once again, I think this is another one that will be a good matchup. I think Connor McDavid, obviously he's spectacular, same with Draisaitl. But you know what, Vancouver's got a couple guys of their own who can, file back at Edmonton. And I think what will really decide this series is the goaltending. I know Edmonton obviously has got a little bit better toward the end, but I think that's still a question mark for me, and I think for a lot of people, that is the question mark. And I think that will be the difference in this series. And I think Vancouver is going to win here in a nice 6 games in that spot. Moving on here to the Eastern Conference now. We obviously have here, of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who pulled off a big-time upset on the Florida Panthers here, going up against the Boston Bruins. I think this is an interesting matchup here. I think both teams are very good. I think Tampa Bay, obviously, they're both Stanley Cup contenders. And I think this could be a fun series to watch here. But I think, obviously, at the end of the day, what's going to decide this series, once again, just like the Vancouver-Edmonton one, it's going to be the goaltending, I feel like. Both of these teams can score a ton, but whoever's got the better goaltender is probably the one that's going to be winning here. And obviously, when you're looking at this team, to see Tampa Bay, they've been firing on all levels. They just haven't been winning as many games as they usually do. And honestly, I think here on this one, I think I'm going to take Tampa Bay once again over Boston here. But I think it's a 7-game series, and it's a tough 7 games for Tampa Bay to pull out a victory. But I think they will at the end there. Moving on here to the President's Trophy winner, New York Rangers, going up here against the Carolina Hurricanes. Obviously, there's only 3 games between these guys, so they're very evenly matched. And obviously now you look at the Carolina Hurricanes, they have Gensel as well, so that's a big-time help for them. And honestly, when I look at this series, honestly, Carolina has been better at goaltending this year. Look at the power play numbers, they're around the same, Carolina having a slight edge. And the penalty kill levels, Carolina has been better at. Honestly, the only thing that New York's been better at in this year against the Hurricanes is the record. And in my opinion here, I think this really see an upset. And I'm going to take the Carolina Hurricanes here over the New York Rangers here in a very quick 7-game series. That's going to be a tough one to watch for both teams. But I think at the end, I think Carolina's going to pull out a victory here. And I think they're going to the conference final once again. Now moving on here to the Western Conference final here, we have the Colorado Avalanche versus the Vancouver Canucks. And I think this is an interesting one here. Obviously, both very good teams. If you look at everything here, though, Vancouver has the better goaltending for sure at 2.70 or 3.07. The penalty kill, Colorado's is better, but it's not insanely by that much. It's only by 2%. And like the penalty kills, they're pretty much around the same to this point. They're very similar teams. I think these are 2 teams that match up very well together. I really think that these are 2 teams that they could be tough opponents to face. I think if you're on the other team, you don't want to play either of these teams here. But honestly, I think we see another... Well, I guess it's not really an upset statistically. It's just, thinking-wise, this is going to be upset. But I'm taking Vancouver here. I think this is a nice 7-game series once again. But I think Vancouver come in here, obviously. And I think they can beat Colorado. I think these are 2 big-time teams who can really win games. But I think Vancouver, they've showed all year they can be a spectacular team. And you know what? I think they can go all the way this year. And I'm going to take Vancouver in this one here. Moving on here to the Eastern Conference final side. Also, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning going up here against the Carolina Hurricane. And this should be a spectacular matchup here. And I think this is the one where things get really fun here in the Eastern Conference side here. Obviously, you look at the things. Both teams score around the same here. Tampa Bay scores a little bit more. But goals against per game, obviously, Carolina has a definite advantage on that side of the thing here. Obviously, power play. pretty much around the same, but Tampa Bay here's got a little bit more of an advantage at 28 compared to the 26 for, of course, the Hurricanes here. When you look at the penalty kill, Carolina's got the better penalty kill by about 3%. And also, when I look at this matchup, I think Tampa Bay is really going to fight these playoffs. But I think at some point, it's just not, they're just going to be able to fight as much anymore. And I think this is the point where they're going to not be able to fight as much. And I have Carolina taking this here in 6 games. So moving on here, obviously, to the Stanley Cup final here. We have the Vancouver Canucks going up against the Carolina Hurricanes in a big-time matchup here. And I think this is going to be a fun series. I think it's going to go to 6 games here. But you know what I think here? I think one team, they have been fine for a very long time here. Obviously, many, like at least multiple, Eastern Conference Finals runs haven't been able to get the job done. I think after this year, training for Gensel, I think Carolina gets the job done, and give me Carolina here in 6 games. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment, like, and subscribe here. And tune in for more NHL content, obviously the playoffs here. I'll probably have a little more NHL content here, and then, of course, the draft and free agency coming up with all sorts of stuff. So, if you guys like this video, please comment, like, and subscribe, and tune in for more. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.